Hello, everyone, and welcome to Getting to Know Saskatchewan's Local Governments. Tonight's session is designed to give you the opportunity to learn more about local government and ask your local government questions. My name is Sean Wiskar. I'm one of Municipalities of Saskatchewan's advocacy advisors. We're recording this evening's session, and we're going to send out the recording later this week to all of you so you can watch it in case you have to check out early. I want to thank you all for attending, and it's great to have you here. I'm going to give you a tour of today's presentation page. We're using Zoom. You can see that you have all your icons at the bottom of your screen. You have your audio settings at the bottom left of your screen, and if you're having any problems with the audio on your computer, you can use this setting to switch to phone audio. We have Q&A for questions. Please be sure to enter your questions into the Q&A box, as the questions in the chat will not be read. If you see a question in the Q&A pod that you think should be asked, give a click on the thumbs up button underneath the question to ensure that it gets asked first. You also have the chat for comments and conversation. I see that lots of you are already dropping where you're from in the comments, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you let us know. You can send your comments to just the panelists, or if you click the button above the text box, you can send it to all panelists and attendees. There's also the raise hand function, which will be used by us if we're experiencing any technical difficulties or need any last-minute feedback. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's panelists. Jason Mckay, who is representing Métis Nation, is a Métis man from Prince Albert. His roots are from the Glen Mary and Green Lake Métis settlements. Jason is a SUNTEP grad and has a 14-year-old son. Randy Golden is the East Central Region Director for Municipalities of Saskatchewan and a councillor for the City of Yorkton. Randy was first elected to the Yorkton City Council in 1997, and she has served on all council committees and commissions. She's also very active in both provincial and national municipal associations. Randy has been the champion of the tourism industry in Saskatchewan for more than 20 years, working with Tourism Yorkton and the Yorkton Film Festival. Throughout her work and volunteer activities, she continually promotes Saskatchewan as the best place to visit, live, and do business. Ray Orb is the president of the Saskatchewan Associations of Rural Municipalities and the Reeve of the RM of QPAR. Ray decided to enter the world of municipal politics in 1985 when he was elected councillor in the rural municipality of QPAR and then Reeve in 1995. He was both a director and the president of the Regina District Association of Rural Municipalities for several years. Ray was elected as SARM Director for Division 2 in 2004 and as Vice President in 2010. In 2014, Ray was elected the President of SARM. He also sits on 3 Federation of Canadian Municipality committees, including the chair of the Rural Forum. Dr. Sean Davidson is President of the Saskatchewan School Boards Association. He's also been a trustee for the Subdivision 5 of the Prairie South School Division since 2009. He has also served as the chair and vice chair of the Prairie South Board of Education. Sean is a proud father of 4 children. He and his family own and operate cattle ranches in Aneroid and Holdfast and very much enjoy their rural life. Sean has also been a practicing veterinarian since 1998. He currently works part-time in Assiniboia, Saskatchewan and Scobie, Montana. Sean has been the president of the Saskatchewan School Boards Association since November of 2016. So to begin today, I'm going to hand it over to Jason first to give us a couple opening comments about his municipality or his local government.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Mckay. I'm the Director of Education at Métis Nation, Saskatchewan. So just a little bit of background of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. We are governed by president, the vice president, and 12 ministers who are distributed throughout the province. We currently have about 13,000 registered citizens in the province, which is a great number since the government came into power 2.5 years ago. So we're a growing number, and we're a new government, so we're looking to contribute to the province as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Next, I'll hand it over to Randy Golden to talk about urban governments. Randy, you're on mute.
Perfect. Right. try that again. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. And thank you to the panelists for bringing us the information they are going to and answer the questions. And thank you to the team who put this together. I'm an elected councillor in the city of Yorkton. We're located on the junction of highways 9, 10, and 16 in East Central Saskatchewan. We have approximately around 20,000 people, the last census, and we have a mayor and 6 councillors. And I'm delighted to be re-elected again in Monday's election. So any of you that are on this call that were up for election on November 9th, congratulations if you were elected, and I wish you the very best in the next 4-year term. Our city provides services to our residents, and you know how residents love to have the clean water come out of their taps. When they flush the toilet, they like it to go away. They like to go to their rinks and arenas, and they like to have streets and roads that are safe to drive on. And they also like to have safe communities where they can walk on the streets and go for walks and feel safe with their families. We have, as a urban municipality at our city, we are legislated through the Cities Act of the Government of Saskatchewan. With that, we cannot run deficits. We have to abide by all the rules in that Cities Act. And we have basically 3 ways to get revenues. One is the property tax. The second is fees and services for what we provide, whether it's recreation programs or water or garbage pickup. And then we have some of the partnership opportunities that we have with other orders of government and revenue sharing that we receive from the provincial government. In Yorkton, we have linear assets, which is our pipes, sewer, water, our flood pipes, sidewalks. We have 747 kilometers of linear assets. Just to let you know, that would take you from Yorkton to Vegreville on the Yellowhead Highway. So one of our challenges are always providing those linear assets and then the hard bricks and mortar assets that we have to make sure that we have those and renew them as needed. So I look forward to any of your questions, and I look forward to learning from the other panelists on the webinar tonight.
Thank you, Randy. Next, I'll hand it over to President Ray Orb to talk about rural governments.
Yes, thank you very much, Sean. My name is Ray Orb. I'm president of Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, and I'd like to thank the panel for participating, and I'd like to thank the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association for helping organize this webinar. My municipality, the rural municipality of Cupar, has a low population, but we have a big area. This is not unique to rural municipalities across the province. We don't necessarily serve people, we serve infrastructure, we serve farms for the better part. Most of our agriculture products that come from the farm go down our infrastructure, whether it be roads or bridges. We have other infrastructure that's in dire need of repair as well. That's a big issue, and that's the reason why some of us may have trouble connecting onto tonight's Zoom call. It's because of lack of good, reliable connectivity in rural Saskatchewan. So rural broadband is a big issue. It's an issue in my rural municipality, and it's an issue for the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, and it's an issue at FCM. And it was mentioned that I am chair of the Rural Forum, and that is a priority of the Rural Forum. And I think we have been successful in a lot of ways by convincing the federal government that we need federal funding to come into provinces like Saskatchewan. And so now the next step is for our provincial government and for the industry to step up to the plate, and municipalities to make sure that that funding comes and we can actually develop some good ways of connecting people that live out in rural Saskatchewan, not only for business. I mean, business is a big priority. Agriculture is a big business, but for manufacturing as well, and to attract people that either want to live in rural Saskatchewan or they want to be able to connect with rural Saskatchewan. So This is an ongoing issue. One of the biggest issues, of course, that probably everybody needs to talk about now at the municipal level is the pandemic, the crisis that we're in right now. And for us to make sure that we have good healthcare coverage in rural Saskatchewan and the message gets out to rural residents, how they can connect, with their physicians or nurse practitioners and other ways of delivering better healthcare to rural Saskatchewan. So I think I look forward to the questions as well, and glad to be on the panel.
Thank you, Ray. Next, we'll go to Dr. Sean Davidson to talk about school boards.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. As mentioned, I am the president of the Saskatchewan School Boards Association, and our provincial organization represents 27 member school divisions across the province. When Ray talks about rural municipalities representing large geographies, certainly our rural school divisions represent very large geographies. We have divisions in the province that are larger than some European countries are. So the province is divided into 18 public school divisions, 8 Catholic separate school divisions, and 1 Francophone division. So there's one school division that serves all of our Francois students province-wide, and obviously operate schools in several communities within that context. We have about 23,000 people employed in our sector, and the infrastructure that we are responsible for maintaining are, of course, all of our school buildings, as well as the various maintenance facilities and offices that boards operate out of around the province, bus garages, things like that. But we are, outside of that, we are primarily a people-oriented business. We have about 193 odd some thousand students within our system now, among all of those boards. And it is the responsibility of the elected trustees to govern that system. So trustees set the policies, the procedures, set the budgets, and set the direction really for their school division, the vision, goals for their students, and then work within that context. We actually just had an election here as well. Our elections are synchronized with the municipal elections, so they happen at the same date and same places generally. We don't all share polling stations, but generally the polls are in many communities in the province in the same place to make it easy for folks to vote for their school division trustee, as well as their municipal councillors and mayors and reeves, as the case may be. So that's basically a brief overview of what we do. One thing that I would like to mention the trustees do not do, and there's certainly we get lots of questions about this, is we do not set the mill rate for education property tax anymore. Back in 2009, that was centralized by the provincial government, and that rate is now set. Of course, education property tax still goes for education, and there is still that link to the community, but it's not the responsibility of the trustees to set that rate anymore. That's done centrally by the government. So did want to mention that.
Thank you, Sean. We're now going to move into our questions. I have a couple questions to get us started, but if you have any questions, remember you can click and enter them into the Q&A pod below. And if you see a question in the Q&A pod that you think should be asked, click on the thumbs up button underneath it to make sure that it gets asked first. So many of you have already touched on this, so I'm just going to ask a couple of you this, but we'll start with Jason Mckay. Can you tell us a little bit about the local government that you represent and what responsibilities specifically belong to that local government?
So under the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, some of the responsibilities we have in the province now are environment, health, education, duty to consult, and sports and recreation, sorry, I was not quite prepared, but I'm just gonna, so those are kind of like the big ones that we have with the government. So like I said, we represent around 13,000 people in the province and speak on their behalf. And like I said, we're fairly new. We're only 2.5 years into our term. I myself am not an elected official. I'm a staff member of Métis Nation Saskatchewan. So I'm just here to represent the Métis Nation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Next, we'll go to Ray. Ray, you did talk a lot about the responsibilities of rural municipalities, but I was just wondering if you had anything you'd like to add. And you're on mute, Ray. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself there. I haven't maybe talked as much about SARM, but I think just going back, to the local responsibilities, and we talked a lot about this before the last municipal election, which incidentally is still not completely finished because we have a few municipalities that still need to complete the voting. But the responsibility and the reason why I think people get involved with municipal politics, and we're always trying to convince people, new people, to run. It's not necessarily that we don't like the incumbents, but we like to make sure that there's some interest out there, and we're trying to work on some of those different ways of doing that. Better communications at SARM. To be able to attract people, and this goes to gender parity, because we know there needs to be some gender parity. We don't have a lot of women on our councils. We have more now than we had, certainly 4 or 5 years ago, but we still don't have quite that balance. And there are reasons why. You need to have both men and women on council, and my wife can attest to that because she's actually the mayor of the town that I live in. So the Reeve and the mayor, we need to get along, not only at home, obviously, but we need to get along, lobbying for different things, being able to share services in some cases, being able to share staff or things like that, but to use our resources effectively. And I think there are some good examples around the province where that is working, and we need to make sure that that continues, and in some cases is enhanced. So there are lots of ways to be able to do that, but to realize the importance of being on municipal council, you should have a lot. You should be able to offer a lot to your local council and to your local residents. That's one reason why you should be on council.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray. Next, we'll go over to Sean. And Sean, you talked a lot about the responsibilities of the school board, so I'm just going to change the question a little bit. Obviously, it's important to get out and vote, and many people on this forum, or hopefully all of them, did that on Monday. But why is it important to stay engaged with a local government and stay engaged with the school board after the fact when you vote?
Well, one of the primary jobs of the school board trustee is to bring the voice of the public into publicly funded education. And there's lots of ways that trustees around the province do that. We certainly see a lot of attendance and cooperation and liaisoning between our elected trustees and the elected school community councils within each school. So the school community councils kind of serve as an advisory body and work with the principal and some of the staff members within the school to set some of the learning improvement plans and such for their own facility. Certainly they provide a lot of input and ideas to their trustees to take to the local table. We also really think it's really important that that local voice reflects the local priorities of those communities, what kind of programming they want to see. They're certainly, the trustees are someone that members of the public can reach out to when they have some concerns or need somebody to talk to about the education of our youth. So that important connection between the public, between parents, communities at large, businesses, schools, all of that, and the actual direction that we set for school divisions is a really key role of trustees that we take very seriously. And absolutely, we are there to represent the public, and we are there if folks need to contact us. Your trustees around the province are there for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. And last but not least, Randy, I'll give you a mix of the two questions. Why is it important to keep up with your elected officials after you've gone to the ballot box, and what specific responsibilities should people be keeping an eye out for when it comes to their urban officials?
Well, thanks for the question, Sean. And it was really interesting listening to the other panelists. And I truly believe that as elected officials in our community and all the different aspects that you're hearing tonight, it is key that we keep engaged because we are really the closest to the people. It sounds almost cliche, but there is nowhere in our communities, whether they're urban or rural or with the schools, that you can go in your community and not run into someone that will want to chat with you about something. And I think that is a really good thing to see and hear all the time. Sometimes it's, it can be, you just want to get away and do a quick grocery shop, but someone needs to chat with you about something. And that's how we grow communities that really speak to the needs of our residents and we need to keep people involved, our citizens involved. And I can give you just a few examples. When there's development going on in your communities, you want to know what your concerns are that you're going to hear from your residents. Whether, where should a new school go if you're looking at a school? If there's a development, an industrial development or a commercial coming in, what do people want to see? We saw a great deal of that when cell towers were coming in. People expressed their concerns. And that is also a good way to get the awareness out of any development that's coming in. But we're now going through a process with a recreation facility. What do those user groups need? It's no sense putting something into a facility that is not needed in your community. And there's always a balance in that, because when you go out to the community, you get wish lists, and sometimes that's a bit difficult to incorporate all of the wishes into your build. But I think that's key, and I think that anyone that's on the webinar tonight, you have to keep engaged. We need to do that, whether you're doing focus groups or surveys, and there's so many different ways that you can engage with your citizens. But I think that's absolutely key to how we build sustainable communities.
Thank you, Randy. And I think that's an excellent point that you've made, that you need to stay engaged. And that's really what builds a community. And that's, what's going to make each of these local governments even better than they already are. Our next question is going to go out to all of you, and I'll mix up the order again. So Jason, do you have something to add?
Yeah, sure. Can I just take another crack at the question? Was what aspect of working in local government is the most important to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for us, it's making sure the citizens are heard. We are representatives of the citizens of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. So we want to put together like a strong voice for our citizens, and the citizens to get involved is to go to meetings, to go to your locals and inquire with your locals what's happening in that local area, so they can relay that information to the elected officials. And then at the legislative assemblies that we have, those questions and concerns can be raised there. So so the most important thing for us is we are representatives of the citizens. So just to make sure that we listen to all citizens and listen to all questions and concerns from them.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. And I think that point of listening to constituents, whoever they may be, is an excellent point. That's kind of crucial to having an effective and efficient local government. We'll go to you next, Jason, for our next question. So I know you said you're a staff, but why was getting involved in your local government important to you?
Well, as I stated earlier in my opening, I'm a very proud Métis man from Prince Albert, and my roots are back to Glen Mary and Green Lake, and working for my people, that's the biggest sense of pride I could ever have. And the most important job that I could ever have is representing who my late father was as a proud Métis man. So the work, don't tell my bosses this, but I would do this work for free because I'm so passionate about working for the Métis people of Saskatchewan. Because Louis Riel left a long legacy for all the Métis people in Saskatchewan and Canada. So we're doing our best to honor what Louis Riel died for, and what his beliefs were. So we're trying to create a government that's transparent and that we're accountable to the people every day, all day. So that's it. Thanks.
I think that's excellent, and it's definitely something that we can all strive for, is to kind of live up to the people that have set great expectations for us in the past. Next, we'll go to Randy. Randy, why was getting involved in local government important to you?
I've been involved for many years, and I first got involved on committees of council as the chair of the recreation board. I had daughters that were figure skaters, sons that were hockey players, and that's how I first got involved. But really and truly, I really like giving back to my community. I'm very involved in many different local groups and organizations, but I think that as an elected official, our key is to be able to provide a great place for our citizens to live and work and have visitors to. So that's why I got involved, and that's why I stay involved. I love engaging with our citizens. I like seeing our economy doing well. Of course, now we have some struggles, but I like being part of it. And I think that when you run for elected position, it's always about the people. I truly believe that.
Thank you, Randy. Next, we'll go over to Ray. Ray, why did you get involved?
Well, that is actually a good question, and it takes me back, quite a few years. But I can tell you, I think, and the people that are around me might be able to attest to this, but I think I'm still pretty much as passionate now as I was when I first got involved. Just prior to 1986. So we've gone through, a lot of years, a lot of good years, some years that weren't too good, and this one probably being the worst year so far. But I think being able to stay connected with other people, we have a lot of good connections across not only the province but across the country, because we are a lobby group as well. But I think just taking it back to the local level, it's, what you can bring to your community. And I feel that I am still offering, a lot to my community, and my community supports me. 4 years ago, I had an election, and I had a clear mandate from our ratepayers, to continue. So I saw fit to continue, again for another 4 years. But the 4 years, it's a big commitment, and it has to be rewarding. Otherwise, I don't think as local councillors, reeves, or mayors, we would continue to do this if we wouldn't find it rewarding. So it still is to me, and that's why I still want to continue.
Perfect. And last but not least, Sean.
Well, thanks for that question. I guess I'll start off by saying that I think that all trustees, or most trustees around the province, get involved in school divisions because they have a passion for education and a firm belief that education is the number one, or certainly one of the very most important investments in our future. Because the education of our youth, that is our future. And I think that was part of the reason why I got involved. But I guess for me personally, to share a personal story, there are some trustees that get involved because they're not necessarily thrilled with the direction that their division is taking. And certainly when I got elected back in 2009, I had several members of my community had approached me and said, Sean, we need a strong voice. We need somebody who's going to really speak up for us in these little towns that are isolated a long ways away from our central offices in Moose Jaw. I represent subdivision 5, which is in the far southwest corner of the division. It is one of the most rural and remote subdivisions in southern Saskatchewan. I won't say it's any comparison to the vast north, which has some very isolated communities, but certainly the area that I come from is very, very rural. And we didn't, myself and several of my constituents didn't necessarily love the direction that the Prairie South School Division was taking at the time, and they wanted somebody who was going to be a strong advocate for them. And I was encouraged to do it. My first response was, oh my goodness, I've got so much on the go. How am I ever going to manage to fit that in? And one of my friends looked me in the eye and said, you know what, Sean, if you want to get something done, you find a busy person. And here I am, 11 years later, leading the provincial organization. So certainly the fire in my belly about the importance of education has not changed. And the making it truly a priority for the province as a whole is something that I'm very passionate about. I always have been, and I think that that's a real fundamental reason why I got involved in the very beginning.
Thank you very much, Sean. And our next question is actually for you as well. Education has a shared governance structure in Saskatchewan with the locally elected boards and the province. Can you explain how the shared responsibility works?
Well, certainly. Fundamentally, the government is the sole funder of education. As I mentioned in my comments at the start, school boards do not set the mill rate for education, the education property tax anymore. That's set by the provincial government. And so the amount of funding that flows to school divisions all comes through the province. And so the responsibility for the province is certainly to fund education. And then the local boards within the funding envelope they receive set the priorities in the budgets for their own local divisions. The other thing that the province does is set some broad arching goals through things like the education sector strategic plan for student achievement. They also, of course, administer things like departmental or provincial exams. They collect the scores and grading for students across the province and produce things like transcripts. Those are all provincial responsibilities. When we get down to our level, which of course is the school board level, that's all about setting our local priorities. So setting our local budgets, setting our local strategic plans, setting the programming, setting what's going to be offered in different schools. Obviously right now, online programming is a very big thing for us in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Certainly I'm with Ray on the importance of improving broadband internet to especially our rural communities. Another thing that local school boards do is indeed advocate to the government for sustainable resources, for the resources that allow us to do innovative things and all of the local programming initiatives that boards want to do. Really that the day-to-day operations of all of our schools and what we do at the division level is really set out all of that sort of work. And then of course within some frameworks that's set by the provincial government.
Thank you, Sean. Our next question is for Ray. Do RMs deal solely with agriculture-related issues? And if not, what other responsibilities do RMs have? And I know you already touched a little bit on this, but if you could expand on it, that'd be great.
Well, I would say that, yeah, rural municipalities deal a lot in the agriculture issues for sure. And SARM does too, because we have a mandate, in agriculture, and specifically, with the movement of products, whether it be livestock or grain products to market, making sure that that works effectively. But they also have, a lot of responsibility, of course, for infrastructure. And I mentioned roads and bridges being, probably the highest priority. We have about 1,400 bridges in rural Saskatchewan, a lot of them in need of repair. There are ongoing programs to be able to design new bridges, to build new bridges. We receive funding for that. Some of the other bridges are more or less on the local shoulders of the local municipalities. But we also have responsibility for healthcare. We make sure that we can work with the province to provide, some kind of healthcare. We have many areas where we don't have any hospitals. We don't have necessarily the medical staff that we need. And I know this is an ongoing issue right now. When we had the series of hospitals closing, we of course weren't happy about that, and we want to make sure that that we have at least good ambulance services. We have some paramedics out there as well, and we have STARS, and that's something that our municipalities donate to on a regular basis to make sure that people in the rural areas can have some comfort that if there's a serious accident, that they can be looked after. So there are a lot of things there. It seems like more things on the plate of rural municipal officials all the time. Nevertheless, we work a lot through SARM to be able to communicate those services and programs to our members and especially new counselors and reeves and administrators as well to get that information.
Thank you, Ray. Our next question is for Jason. This person says, I'm from Isle Across, and we have built existing partnerships between the school division and both of our schools, the municipality, the Friendship Center, and other local agencies and organizations. Sadly, we do not always have the Métis local involved. Will Métis Nation Saskatchewan help Métis locals get better set up and build better capacity at the local level So they are working in partnership with their communities and other agencies to ensure Métis culture, language, and Métis government is a bigger part of the community.
Gerald, I'll do the best I can to answer part of your question because, like I said, I am just a staff member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. I had the pleasure of visiting your beautiful community of Isle La Crosse, Saskatchewan, I believe it is called in Cree or Michif. Beautiful, beautiful community. I had a chance to view the school with Vince Henneque, and it was just impressive how what a setup the school had. And as for your question, when you asked, will the Métis Nation Saskatchewan help Métis locals get better set up and build capacity at the local level? I can't answer that as a staff member, but I will take that question back to the elected officials at Métis Nation Saskatchewan and your Métis local, and I will ask them, and then I could formulate a response for you. But because I'm not an elected official, I just can't answer it. I'm sorry, Gerald.
Thank you, Jason. And next up, we'll have a question for Randy. So I'm just going to take one question here and slightly change it to make it more urban focused. It says, notably this year for the RM elections, we've had many municipalities have to conduct further calls for nominations to fulfill vacant council positions. Political local civil engagement seems to lack. Do you see urban municipalities that struggle with the same issue, Randy? And how do you think that they can generate engagement from their municipalities and their residents to get more involvement in civic elections?
Thanks, Sean. There's quite a few parts to that question, but here in Yorkton, at the last election, we had 6 positions that we had 24 people running. And this year in 2020, we had 15 people running for the 6 positions. So we've been fortunate. We've had a great deal of engagement in our community, and that's always good to see. But I understand in many of our urban communities, that's not always the case. So I really think that we have to go out and do more of some of the things we've started actively doing this year. I think if people will remember, we had some webinars that we had going that people could get information on running for municipal councils. And I think we have to do more of that. And I think we have to do that all the time. Really talking about, number one, what municipalities do, number two, how you can get engaged with that. And some people, if in our community that I've talked to, and I'm sure it's in others, they would much rather be on committees than maybe run for council. So you have to take a look at how you do some succession planning too. I don't think it's just when you do the call, when it goes out for the nominations, that all of a sudden you're going to see people run. I think this is a constant talk about, and perhaps we can do some training, a little more training of the elected officials we have now. We can do some training with our administrations so that they can always provide information on what it really looks like to be an elected official. I enjoy it, and I think everyone that you've heard tonight on our panel, we all enjoy what we're doing. But how do we get that out more, and how do we engage more? And maybe we can, look with our media. Maybe we can look going into our schools and training some of our younger people, our universities. I think it's a coordinated strategy that we need to have done. And then we have to also understand that, there are some people that are just not interested. But I think we can work with the people that are interested, the ones that are already on boards and on committees that we can engage to take that next step.
Thank you, Randy. And I think this is a great question to broaden out to give everyone else an opportunity to address as well. What are some of the key ways that your organizations generate engagement from residents or from stakeholders or others? So I'll hand it over to Ray. Maybe if you want to talk about some ways that SARM generates engagement in rural elections.
Yeah, definitely. When I see, around the province, there were some vacancies. There was a call for nominations, and there were some rural municipalities that couldn't fill the slate, I guess, so to speak. And I think there are reasons for that. One of the reasons is, it's basically a volunteer position, because there's not a great indemnity to be a rural councillor or reeve. It's more like a lot of hard work. So that, and I believe the 4-year terms, it seems like it deters some people from going into municipal politics. And yet, a lot of the municipalities, a lot of the rurals this year had elections, and there were, in some cases, almost the whole council was up for election. And so it shows that in some areas there's a lot of interest. There are a lot of interest for change. Some of the incumbents got back in, but some are new councillors in Reeves, and some almost entirely new councils. So it was kind of a mixed bag, I think, but SARM recognizes that we need to, attract and retain, qualified people for these positions. So we did hire a consulting company to look at the capacity of rural municipalities and the councils and what they actually need. And we're just starting to get into that process. We're starting to ask the questions: what kind of education do people need to, first of all, to get into this municipal politics? What do they need to understand? What help do they need from SARM? What they need to understand the legislation and conflict of interest, all the things that are required by legislation. And there are quite a few of them now that are mandated by the province. So we're trying to help our members that way. We offer actually seminars as well. We do seminars for our new councillors to be able to show them what they've actually got into. It's kind of after the fact, but we know that we have to continue to be able to do this to attract and keep those good people on our councils.
Thank you, Ray. Next, we'll go over to Jason. Jason, this goes off of a great point that came from the question earlier from Gerald. In communities where there is less engagement from the Métis locals, what are some things that Métis Nation can do to help generate more participation in these communities?
Just have people attend their regular Métis local meetings and voice your questions and opinions at those meetings. And just to get involved in the community, get involved with the local, and stay in touch with the elected official in that region. And just the latter part of the question from Gerald is how are they working in partnership with the community and agencies to ensure Métis culture, language, and Métis governance is a bigger part of your community in La Crosse? So Gerald, one of the things that I'm currently working on as the education director here at Matination Saskatchewan is the Michif Revitalization program. We through a survey, we recognize that the Michif language for our people is dying. So we are currently working with six different schools in the province, 2 in Regina, 2 in Saskatoon, 1 in La Loche, and the school in La Crosse. So we're doing a Michif revitalization program there, where we are starting with pre-K and K students. So we want to be able to create more little Michif speakers, so that for generations to come, though, it's those younger people that will carry on the legacy and the language of our Michif people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And Sean, same question. So when we're looking at getting involved with your local school board, regardless of whether you're elected or not, what are some things that residents can do to stay actively involved with their SSBA, and how do you generate that involvement?
Well, I guess just I'd like to speak to the election just really quickly. We certainly are happy with the turnout. of folks that put their name forward for election in this round. Where we haven't ran all the numbers yet provincially, and not all the elections are completed yet, but it appears that over 70% of our trustees are going to be elected this year as opposed to acclaimed. Some of our largest school divisions have had elections in absolutely every ward this year, which is really encouraging that there's a lot of interest out there. Our provincial organization has put some real emphasis on some advertising and some social media presence around what it means to be a trustee and why you may want to get involved. We're also quite proud of our diversity. You know, Ray talked a little bit about gender equity. And certainly that's something we pay attention to in our world as well. And we're very close. Currently, or prior to the election anyway, we were about 52% male trustees and 48% female. So we're pretty close on the parity there. We also have about 12% of our trustees around the province that self-identify as Indigenous peoples, which is really important given the population of Indigenous students within our system, that their voices be represented at our tables. And we have, as a provincial organization, done some things to reach out to the Indigenous population and encourage them to seek election as school board trustees as well. As far as once we're out in the communities and elected and everything, certainly we encourage people to get involved with their school community councils in their local schools, in their local communities. Of course, our board meetings are public meetings, and we do have a number of boards around the province now that live stream their meetings. So if folks can't get out to be in the meeting in person, and obviously in our current pandemic reality, that's more difficult than it has been previously. But all of the regularly constituted meetings where the business and decisions and motions of the board are made are public. And as I mentioned, there's a number of our boards that actually broadcast those or record them or make them readily available for our ratepayers and communities to see the business of the Board of Education. So you know, those are a couple of real good ways for community members to get involved and to know what's going on. And certainly we're out in the communities. I rarely get out of a rink somewhere in my area without somebody catching me somewhere and asking a few questions about what's going on or presenting some concerns that they may have of that's going on in their local school. And certainly our trustees around the province do try to be out in the community and visible and available for people to talk to them.
Thank you, Sean. And Randy had some more thoughts to share.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sean. And many of the panelists have referred to my one comment I have on this is we really have to look to diversity. Our province, our municipalities are really changing. And that's a great thing. And I know here in Yorkton, we're really looking at doing some partnerships so that we can get out into our community, because I truly believe if you see it, you can be it. And we mentioned gender balance, and we know in Saskatchewan we have the lowest percentage across Canada. And then we would look to at our other ethnicities that we have in our communities, and we had some balance in the people running, the candidates running in Yorkton. But in my mind, we can always do better. So whether we're going to be doing some collaboration with our Newcomer Center here in Yorkton, or with our Friendship Center, or with our Métis Association that we have here, but we need to continue that. We know that we have a great deal of newcomers from the Philippines, from the Ukraine, and we need to bring those people into our governance, whether it's on council or on committees. But we really need to hear those voices, because I know in Yorkton, you know, we've been looking at building cricket courts for cricket. Like, you know, we wouldn't have known that we needed this unless people came to us and let us know that. So it's really interesting that we need to look at diversity. I think that's how we become stronger communities and municipalities.
Thank you, Randy. And Ray, do you have something to add?
Yes, I do. I think I just want to mention that we're engaged, you know, more with the youth, I think, than we used to be. We're really interested in working with the Saskatchewan 4-H Association. And I appeared in, Kelsey Reimer actually attended this with me. We went to, you know, their provincial meeting. I guess it's almost a year ago now in Regina. And we talked to them, about the importance of young people. And so we invited them to our conference last March. And I think they attended another meeting of ours, but they actually brought young people into our conference, and they got up there and they just spoke about their passion, about rural Saskatchewan, about their own farms, growing up in rural Saskatchewan. It was really good. And our members are really interested, and our board is really interested in that, continuing to work with them. So we're hoping, some of that kind of spills over, and some of them end up being counselors or reeves, and or maybe administrators, as that case may be. So I think we're on the right track, I think, on that for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. And last but not least, it looks like Sean has some stuff to add as well, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Well, I just wanted to say that, education is our business. And I heard earlier on, I think it was Randy mentioned that, the importance of education around what local governments do. And right now, in cooperation with our friends at SARM and SUMA, as well as the Federation and the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, we are working to develop some modules for the education system for in our schools, describing all the different levels of local government and all of the things that we do. So we really appreciate the partnerships that we have with all of the folks around the table here. We've heard from our municipal organizations that, some work experience programs that happen in our schools, make sure that we remind our students that we have urban and rural municipalities that have administrators that are willing to bring in students to get involved and things like that. So we are working as a sector with our partners to help with that education piece and to start putting together some further information for our students so that the youth know going into the future what we all do and how important it is.
Thank you, Sean. And that brings us to 7:20. So we're just going to wrap up today's meeting. There are a couple questions left over, and we'll make sure that we send those out to the panelists so that in the recording we can get you an answer to those questions. But hopefully we've been able to touch on at least the themes of your questions. I see we have a couple about youth and accountability and governance models and communication, and I think we've touched on a lot of those themes tonight. But I just want to go around and I want to give everyone a final chance here to share some final thoughts. We'll start with Jason. Jason, if you could summarize kind of some of the important takeaways about local government and specifically Métis Nation that you'd want residents to take away from this webinar, what would it be?
Just to say that, if you want to be involved and you want your voice to be heard, it is very important to attend those local meetings and find out what's going on in your community and recognizing who your elected official is in your area, and to just, if you don't know anything, inquire about it, ask questions, because, we all say, you go through life saying, no question is a bad question or something like that. So, just, if you want to be involved in the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, just go out, get involved. We're all having tough times getting out COVID wise, but in the normal sense of life, go to those meetings and just make your voice heard at those meetings, and go regularly, and you'll get involved, and you'll see what like I said, we are a young government. 2.5 years ago, we only had 2,500 registered citizens in the province, and today we have over 13,000. So we are a young government, but we're growing, and we're growing with the province. So we're just in the infant stages of our government. So with time and effort, we're going to get there as Métis people, and our voices will be heard one day. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Next, we'll go to Randy. Randy, do you want to share some final thoughts and takeaways?
Oh, thanks a lot, Sean, and thanks to the panelists and everyone that's joined us tonight. And I really have to say that we have a beautiful province with so many things and so many opportunities for everyone that lives here. And I really appreciate the governance that we have here. When you just look at the past elections that we had and the opportunities for our residents to vote for your municipal leaders, for your people that work with our school systems. And then you look at our neighbors to the south and what is happening down there. We have good governance at the provincial level, at the national level, and definitely in the municipal levels. We have the opportunity to vote. We just celebrated and recognized our veterans yesterday that provided all those opportunities for us. And I know that when I looked at our election, we had a low turnout. Well, we had about 30% in Yorkton. I'd love to see more, and I'd like to encourage that even more, because that is our opportunity, where many places in the world, they don't have that. And we have that right, and that more so that privilege. So I think we have to work on that. But I'm so proud of our communities in this province and the quality of life that we have. And yes, we have some challenges. We have our pandemic that we're dealing with, but like everything else, and especially us here in Saskatchewan, we're just going to go and we're going to get it done, and we're going to move on. We're going to get our economy running really well again, and we're going to have a great place to live and visit. So I just encourage everyone to keep working at it, because that's our Saskatchewan way.
Thank you, Randy. Next, we'll go to Sean. Sean, do you want to share some final thoughts?
Sure. Well, thanks, Sean. Certainly, we believe that that local voices and local choices will always serve the people well. We believe very strongly that decisions are best made by those who are closest to them and most affected by them. And so that's where we think that that school divisions and elected school trustees are really a fundamental part of a high functioning democracy. We have seen some jurisdictions across the country that have abolished elected school boards. For example, Nova Scotia did that not so long ago, and they've seen some really, really big challenges with doing that, in that their public really don't know where to reach out to anymore. And certainly, even in this province, elected school boards were reviewed a few years ago, and it was concluded after a consultation process that the government embarked on, that it was indeed the best form of school division governance, and that those local choices and local voices were very important. In fact, since that review, we have seen school divisions, I would say, gain some greater respect and some greater autonomy to make decisions that are most important for their local context. So we certainly appreciate the relationship that we have with our communities, with our public, with our provincial government here in the province. We think that boards are well suited and well situated to make those good decisions that affect their local communities. And we certainly want to thank everyone that sought election in this last round here this week. Congratulate all of those that were successful, and truly thank all of those that put their name forward. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of work to seek an elected position, and we appreciate everyone for their involvement. I did take a quick look at the questions too when you mentioned youth were on there, and one of them was about youth engagement, and we certainly have some boards around the province that have indeed brought student trustees in. So we have divisions that do have student trustees sitting on their boards. We also have a large number of boards around the province that have some kind of a student advisory committee. So once again, just getting back to decision making being closest to those that it affects. Boards do a generally good job of engaging with their students as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And last but not least, Ray, if you want to share some final thoughts.
Well, I will, and I thought about this, a few times, especially over the last, a couple of months. But I think this holds true for all elected officials and, all the organizations that we represent. The decisions we make today will affect a lot of people into the future. And I think we have to be cognizant of that fact, that we need to make informed decisions. We need to be educated. We need to be, willing to be educated to be able to do our jobs. We need to be, of course, respectful of others and to be able to work with others. We need to be able to understand others and how they work as well, and how this affects the general public. But the partnerships, and I think Sean mentioned that you know, what we have here right now is a good example of partnership that I think is very effective. And these kind of partnerships, I think, are almost invaluable. You can't really put a price on this kind of thing. And something like this has to be nurtured. This takes a lot of understanding, but also takes a lot of hard work. And I think, you know, we might make a pledge tonight. We continue something like this because I think this is really good for us to get this message out to the general public. Yes, we're here, you know, to work to serve the general public. That's our duty as an elected official, but we're also willing to work with other organizations as well. And thanks very much for the invitation tonight.
Thank you, Ray. And that's certainly one of my main takeaways from tonight's webinar is that even though we may be all different types of local governments, urban, rural governments, school boards, FSIN and Métis Nation, all of these types of local governments certainly are interconnected and they all play critical roles in ensuring each other's success. That brings us to the end of today's local government session. I just want to remind everyone that we're going to be providing a recording of this forum to the registrants in the next few days. And I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today and taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here. And same with you as the attendees. Thank you for coming out. It was fantastic to have as many of you here as we could. We know that there's many other things you may be wanting to do on a Thursday evening, but we're glad that you're here with us. But another huge thank you to our Local Government Week committee, our Local Government Week panelists. And as Ray said, this is certainly something that we look forward to building on and helping residents understand the roles of local governments. And I don't think we have a survey for everyone, so we're going to end it there. Everyone have a great evening.
Good night,
Bye-bye
everyone.
now.
Be well. Be
Take care.
well.
Okay, everyone. Thank you.